Welcome into the NFL on Fox podcast presented by Verizon. I'm Dave Helman. I hope whether you're at home, whether you're traveling, you're having a happy, fun, safe Thanksgiving. We'll call it the build up to the holiday. Thursday right around the corner. Hope you have a wonderful spread, wonderful time with family and friends planned out. Of course, I'm guessing football is going to be a really big part of it if you're listening to this podcast. We got 3 games coming up this Thanksgiving. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into the Black Friday game as well. Wall-to-wall football. That's how we like it in the NFL. Before that, though, plenty of news this week heading into Week 12. I'll call it long-awaited news. I think that's fair to say. The Pittsburgh Steelers have fired offensive coordinator Matt Canada, probably to the happiness of every Yinzer on earth. Maybe only those that say, what the hell took so long? The writing's been on the wall about this development for a long, long time. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin says, hard decision to make, his decision alone. I guess maybe the biggest development here, and maybe the reason the Steelers waited so long to do this, is this just isn't an organization that makes change. Not without thinking long and hard about it. Famously only had a handful of head coaches. Mike Tomlin's been in the job since 2007. It's the Rooney way. This isn't a knee-jerk team. When you've won 6 Super Bowls, I guess you can afford to be that way, but it speaks to how dismal it's been watching the Steelers play offense that this change took place. They're 28th in the league in offense, however you want to slice it. That's yardage, that's points. They're below average in DVOA, just ugly all the way around. Mike Tomlin says quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan, running back coach Eddie Faulkner will sort of tag team the interim OC duties. Sounds like it'll be Sullivan, though, the quarterbacks coach, who will be in Kenny Pickett's headset on Sunday against Cincinnati. Makes sense given the relationship. The good news for Sullivan, for Faulkner, for Kenny Pickett, for everybody, there's not a whole lot of ways to go but up. That's been the problem in Pittsburgh. If you've watched it at all this season, they haven't cracked 350 yards all year. Famous stat that goes around during football season. The Steelers haven't had a 400-yard day of offense since 2020. That's when Big Ben was still playing football. They haven't managed 300 yards in half their games. They've famously been outgained in every single game they've played. Speaks to Mike Tomlin's coaching ability, situational coaching, that they've managed to get to a 6-4 record. But when you get outscored by Dorian Thompson-Robinson in his second NFL start, it's not surprising that they chose this week to make a change. Doesn't help the offense going against Cincinnati. Doesn't make it any easier to beat Lou Anarumo and the Bengals defense, but it is at least a favorable spot to be in, we'll call it, that the Bengals are also breaking in Jake Browning after that unfortunate injury to Joe Burrow. So maybe this isn't a game where you don't need a lot of points from Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, and the crew, but you sure would like to see more than what we've seen from the Steelers during the Matt Canada era. That's why the decision was made. Elsewhere in the AFC on Wednesday, the Indianapolis Colts made some waves coming out of their bye week. They waived former All-Pro linebacker Darius Shaquille Leonard. Shaq Leonard parting ways with Indianapolis. Kind of a surprising move if you're not in tune with what's going on with the Colts, probably. They're 500. They're on their bye week. Why are you waiving one of the best players on your roster over the last few years? Well, I would say combination of a dip in playing time, a dip in performance for a guy who was one of the best linebackers in the league over a 2 or 3 year stretch, but injuries have been a problem. Shaq Leonard not quite looking like the guy you might remember from several years ago. And on top of that, Leonard had been critical, had been publicly unhappy with his amount of playing time. It's Zaire Franklin who's getting the star turn playing linebacker for the Colts these days. So combination of big contract, not playing up to it, voicing your unhappiness about it, and the Colts say, you know what, we'll just go ahead. We'll take the cap hit right now. We'll waive you. We would probably do it when this season's over anyway. We'll just get a head start, and hopefully you can land somewhere else. Everybody had very nice things to say about Leonard on his way out. Colts and Leonard both put out nice statements about it. It is interesting to see what happens from here. It's a big contract. All veterans at this point in the season, no matter how many years you've played, from 10 years, 4 years, whatever. If you're released at this point in the NFL season, you go through the waiver system. That means anybody in the league will have a chance to put a claim on Leonard if they want him. Problem is, they would have to take on that contract as well. I wonder if that will preclude anybody from taking a chance on him. If he clears waivers, he's free to sign whatever deal he wants with whichever team he wants. So I'm curious to see if anybody's willing to put a claim in, given the money involved. Do you want to take a $6 million cap hit to add Darius Leonard to your team? He's got 65 tackles so far this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he clears waivers and then he's free to do whatever he wants. Of course, this all has the potential to age very terribly. By the time you're listening to this, he might have a new NFL home. I do want to shout him out, though. Hey, it's a dirty business. It's a bottom line business. This type of thing happens all the time. But Shaquille Leonard was cut on his day off on Thanksgiving week, still went out into the Indianapolis community and was donating food, being part of a Thanksgiving food drive to the Indianapolis community, serving food to underserved people in that city. I just think it's really cool. That is part of being a professional athlete. These guys are heroes in their community. Good on Shaq Leonard for recognizing that, for doing good by the Indianapolis community, regardless of what's going on with him. Hopefully he lands on his feet in a new NFL city sooner rather than later. Okay, I think that covers us on all the news from Tuesday, but plenty more news items to get to on this Thanksgiving week. Who better to help me go through that than my good buddy, Peter Schrager? Peter is a weekly guest on the show. This week, we had plenty to talk about, whether it was the quarterback change with the New York Jets. We talked about Joe Brady's first week as the Bills offensive coordinator, even got into the beauty of a Thanksgiving Day nap. Plenty to cover in this week's cheat sheet with Peter Schrager, presented to you by Honda. Check it out.
All right, Peter, first of all, a very happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year. And I think the NFL knows that because they keep adding games for us to enjoy during I think, it used to be one, and now between Thanksgiving and Black Friday, we got 4 of them to look forward to this week.
Yeah, this is cool. It's funny because you have this, obviously the Thursday slate. You and I know this. You should just be 2 games. You should just be Lions and Cowboys. Then around 10 years ago, they added this primetime thing, and now it's 3 days. Now you have Black Friday, but you still have a full slate on Sunday, and you still have a Sunday night game, and you still have a Monday night game. So the NFL is going all out with this thing. The Black Friday game is a new innovation, and I'm really curious to see how it goes. But I think the more the better at this point. Like I could convince myself into Arkansas, Missouri every year, like a little college football action.
Okay,
I'll get into it. But I think the NFL, I think I'll be watching that on Friday.
That's not even just Thanksgiving college football, like the Iron Bowl, like Arkansas, Mizzou. That's an SEC deep cut right there. So I appreciate that. One of these weeks or one of these years, the NFL is going to figure out how to make like Tuesday football work. And then it's going to be over for everybody. But all right, we just mentioned Black Friday. It's a new thing. It's the Dolphins heading up to face the Jets. We would talk about it anyway, but lo and behold, the fresh news heading into week 12 is that it'll be Tim Boyle headlining for this game. I'm not sure Amazon saw that coming when they asked for this to be the Black Friday game, but it feels like something had to happen. But what do you make of Robert Saleh's decision to make a switch there?
Interesting timing in that if you were going to make a switch, maybe 2 weeks ago was the time to make the switch. And then you've got this looming Rodgers storyline. Glazer reported on it on the Fox NFL Sunday show. I've reported on it already. That they do hope to get Rodgers back. And by they, I mean the team, and Aaron Rodgers wants to come back. Now, Glazer said he'll be practicing by December 2nd. And I've heard everything from, the Christmas Eve game that they play against the Washington Commanders at home is like a target for Rodgers to, who knows, maybe even sooner, but that's looming. Can you possibly trot Rodgers out there if they're 4-8 or 4-9 and the playoffs are not a real possibility when you have all next season and all off season? And there's different tentacles to this. Are we sure that the coaching staff is going to be there when Rodgers wants to come back next year? Is this one of those where, hey, let me get in here and show what we can do so we can keep this thing together? Make no mistake about this. Nathaniel Hackett is an Aaron Rodgers guy. Alan Lazard is an Aaron Rodgers guy. Billy Turner is an Aaron Rodgers guy. Randall Cobb is an Aaron Rodgers guy. A lot of these players, I think for in a lot of ways, Tim Boyle is an Aaron Rodgers guy.
I was going to say, started in Green Bay, yeah.
So there's a Rodgers fingerprint on everything the Jets are going to do this season, going back to the offseason acquisition to all the different, guys that they got, and that included Dalvin Cook. I think that was a no-brainer for a lot of ways at the time. Like, hey, let's just add another weapon because we're going to be playing late into December and January, and Rodgers gets all the weapons that he needs. I say all this because, Zach Wilson wasn't getting the job done. Plain and simple. They finally score a touchdown, and it's like a fake parade about it. Is it too late? That's the question. Is it too late? Their schedule's brutal from here on out. It's not going to get any easier. And Tim Boyle hasn't played in much NFL action, but can they hold the fort just long enough for Rodgers to come back and still be alive for that playoff push?
I love the way, I think it's been a theme for our talks this year. Like, things just have a way of coming full circle. It's not quite perfect, but Tim Boyle's first NFL start came for the Lions the week of Thanksgiving. I just think that's interesting that here we are 2 years later and he gets to play during this holiday week again. And I mean, okay, I'm very interested in what you just said, just about the amount of things that the Jets did for Aaron Rodgers to kind of create this environment for him. We know the expectations are high there. Is there a certain bar they have to meet to where you just say, like, okay, I mean, this is a mulligan year. How could you expect that Aaron Rodgers is going to get 3 snaps into the season before he gets hurt? Or like, do you think there's a bar the Jets have to meet for everybody to keep their jobs, regardless of who did or didn't get hurt?
I don't think they want to fire any of these guys, and I don't think they want to have to go into another rebuild mode. I think that the expectation was that Rodgers was going to be there. The expectation was that the offensive line would be healthy. Both those things were immediately taken off the table. The offensive line is one of the worst in football, and those guys who are playing right now are trying their hardest, but we're talking third string across the board, everyone. Becton goes down with an injury this week, which is like Becton was playing awesome this year, and that's not even a storyline, well above expectations. So I think it's mulligan. I also think it's one of these things. Do you protect Aaron from himself if they are eliminated from the playoffs and he wants to come back? Is there a win to get him on the field? Now, he's already said he wants to come back. He's already told McAfee he wants to be out there. I think when he's got the focus and the drive and the will to do something, he wants to do it. Is it in his best interest? Is it in the team's best interest? If they are a 4-8 team or a 4-9 team going nowhere, to put Aaron Rodgers out behind that offensive line in games that are seemingly meaningless as far as playoffs go, but individually something very important to him. And that's going to be an interesting debate because I don't think they want to cross that road where the games are meaningless, but there is a chance if they lose a couple more of these, that by the time we get to that Christmas Eve or we get to that New Year's weekend, the Jets might be irrelevant from the playoff picture, but Rodgers is steadfast on, I want to see the field. And if God forbid, something happens in those games, well, then you might sacrifice the next 6-8 months, whatever. I don't want to even put that out there in the ether. Rodgers is as competitive and as, I don't want to say stubborn, but I want to say strong-willed. And if he wants to get back on that field, who from that Jets organization is going to say no to Aaron Rodgers? That's going to be the question.
I mean, I don't want the guy to get hurt. I don't want to rob us of that storyline for next year, but I'm selfishly rooting for this to happen. I hope
you want him on the field. What's interesting, Dave?
Steal a win.
So to a man, I mean, whether it's you, me, whether it's Glazer, whether it's Rappaport, whether it's Kyle Brandt on my Good Morning Football show, we all talk about it. And it's like, yeah, it's doable. And to a man, every ex-player, I don't know one who's saying otherwise. Every ex-player is like, oh, hell no. Hell no, A, he's not going to do it. Like, they just don't think it's possible. And 2, he shouldn't do it. I think it's a real interesting divide between media and journalists and
that's those of us
who love the story, and then the player side of it, where there's a lot of ex-jocks on TV. And I don't know any of them who are like, you know what, he should go for it. I think most of them are on the prudent and conservative side, and also on the doubtful side of there's no way. They've seen too many Achilles injuries that it's just not possible.
Well, that's like the same thing you hear with ex-players all the time where and I get it. You think of it in narrative and timelines, and it's like, okay, it's an Achilles. That's an 8-month injury that puts you back here. So I can have Aaron Rodgers back on my screen by September, whatever. And meanwhile, the guy that's played in the NFL is like, yeah, you really don't feel better after an Achilles until like 18 months later, but go off, like whatever you say. So I mean, I get it, but like, and I think another part of it too is I don't want to be the guy that bets against him because you have a habit of like wearing egg on your face when you do stuff like that.
Especially with him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, I don't want him to do anything dumb, but you can't deny it would be a fun story.
Ideal situation for them. Tim Boyle rattles off a couple wins. They beat the Dolphins twice here, and then in 2 weeks down in Miami. They're right in the thick of the playoffs. Christmas Eve, national audience, Commanders, Jets, and out comes Rodgers out of the tunnel, and that's an ideal situation. I live in ideal situations. I'm an endless optimist. And when it comes to Jet fans, they often accuse me of being, a little bit too rosy around the edges with everything when I'm on my morning show, because I'm always like, yeah, but here, instead of being the harsh reality, which is this Jets team is likely not going to have that scenario.
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep it. We talked about this last week. Let's keep it in the New York area. Team way out on the west side of the state, the Buffalo Bills, the team that just prompted this quarterback switch. The Bills score 30 points for the first time in 6 or so weeks. Joe Brady on the job on a short week. I mean, I don't know if it was as picture perfect as we would have dreamed, but I mean, that's not a bad debut for a guy in Joe Brady's situation.
Joe Brady was awesome yesterday because the run game was good too. Like, you had James Cook and you had Ty Johnson, who hasn't done much for them this season, making a big play. But there was an 81-yard pass to Khalil Shakir, where he makes that play, and you could feel a collective gasp of not only relief but of joy and of euphoria in that stadium. It's the first time I've seen that stadium cheer that way, maybe all season. Like, it's been that long, where the other games on prime time and in the late afternoon window have been so tense. And so, like, why are we not what we should be? They put up 32 yesterday. They got all the takeaways on defense, which was awesome. And the offense looked better. So small sample size. It was against a bad Jets team. They did it, and it became an avalanche type of a situation. But Joe Brady came in, and guess what? You wake up this morning and you look around. Well, the Bengals now are without Joe Burrow, and the Browns are without Deshaun Watson, and the Chargers lost another one, and the Jets lost another one. And you're like, oh, maybe the Bills are just fine. And they're 6-5, and there's a lot of games left.
Can we, I mean, look, it hasn't worked out perfectly. There's been a lot of high profile injuries. I think we've had a lot of games in primetime windows that maybe haven't been as sexy as we thought they would be, but the schedule makers clearly backloaded this thing with a lot of contenders going against contenders. I mean, now the Bills get the Eagles next. The Eagles are playing the Niners in a few weeks. Like, I mean, there are like the teams that we consider to be the Super Bowl contenders are all playing each other here over the next month or so, and it looks fun as hell.
Yeah, you got the Cowboys playing the Chiefs. You've got the Ravens going up against their division opponent. It's loaded. And the NFL, it's a long season. It's 18 weeks. We slug through a lot of it. Then you get surprise games. Like, I'm looking at the schedule this weekend. There's a quiet little Browns-Broncos game that probably no one thought would matter. That is huge. And that's this weekend. And the Jaguars and Texans is this weekend. So you never know what you could predict. The NFL, I think a lot of people thought they stubbed their toe putting the Broncos on primetime. All these games, 2 of the best games all season have been the Broncos the last 2 weeks, Monday night, and then this past week on Sunday night. And you still have all these Cowboys games. You still have all these Eagles games. Like, the schedule makers know what they're doing.
Let's stick it with the Denver Broncos. You've been on that train. It's been there we go with the old school helmet. I love the old school.
Isn't it good?
I love the old school Broncos.
Don't you see this? And then you see they're playing the Browns and you think Elway Kozar. Like, I'm ready for this weekend.
The drive, a whole lot of games that I've only seen through YouTube highlights. I'm sorry to say, but I mean, look, the longest winning streak in the NFL belongs in Denver. It hasn't always been beautiful, but man, the combination of what they're doing on defense and just basically getting a circus catch from Cortland Sutton every week. It's enough.
They have this little play where it's like Samaje Perine in the fourth quarter, go 5 yards and let Russ dump it to you a couple of times. That's like the setup. And then you get the crazy Sutton touchdown. That's been their method to their madness. I put up this thing right here. I'll tell you this. They were 1-5. Everyone wrote them off. They also they jettisoned 2 different players, Frank Clark and Randy Gregory. Fine. They weren't like homegrown guys, but they held on to Sutton, Judy, and of course, Patrick Surtain. And the reports came out afterwards. They were offered a lot for Patrick Surtain, and they were a 2-5 team. And they were like, nah, we're going to keep him. They were offered a lot for Jerry Jeudy. no, we're going to keep them. Same with Cortland Sutton. They receive calls. So to me, it's like, it's all about culture, but it's also about, hey, maybe that was a confidence lift for everyone that they're not giving up on us yet. We're not being sold off for 60 cents on the dollar. And I was on the Fox NFL kickoff show yesterday, and I was asked, like, could they make a playoff run? Of course they can make a playoff run. But I look at the schedule and I was like, they're home against the Vikings. That's a winnable game, which it was. They're home against the Browns. It's a winnable game, especially with a backup quarterback. And they've already played Mahomes twice. And it's like, crap, why not? The AFC's wide open and Peyton's got them believing. So I like the fact that they didn't get rid of all that young homegrown talent. And it was almost like, let everyone on the outside write us off. We're not writing off these guys yet. And maybe that's led to some of the confidence in the building.
I mean, I speak for myself. You fall into the trap of just thinking of opponents in the best terms possible. It's like, how are we going to beat the Dolphins and their high flying offense? How are we going to beat the Bills? Well, they already beat the Bills. They already did that. Like you said, they split with Kansas City, which is as good as anybody's ever done against Mahomes. Like, the Bengals unfortunately lose their quarterback. You're not celebrating that, but like, it's the reality of the NFL. Like, they are every bit as capable of finishing as the 5, 6, 7 seed as anybody else right now.
Yeah. And they have a coach who's done it and won Super Bowls, and they have a quarterback who's done it and won Super Bowl. Like, I don't know. I'll bank on Sean Payton and the Mile High experience over some of these other upstart teams, but we'll see.
I've gotta start. And I tell myself this every year, but it's such a long season.
I know.
And somebody that starts terribly is usually good by Thanksgiving.
Well,
and somebody that starts
look at the 49ers,
Dave.
We've done the, oh my gosh, Brock Purdy's going to be the MVP, to, oh my gosh, Brock Purdy might have to be benched, to, oh my God, Brock like, the swings are incredible. The ups and downs of the season. Forget about the Broncos. How about the Vikings? They go 0-3, then they win 5 straight, then they lose. And now it's exhausting. The Rams right now are coming off a sweep of the Seahawks. I wrote the Rams off. Everyone wrote the Rams off. Look at their schedule. They play Arizona. They play Cleveland. Like, the Rams are still alive. So it's such a long season. And we find ourselves getting into this trap of talking MVP in week 7 or talking about playoff picture in week 8. And time again, it's great for TV. It's great for podcasts. It's great for videos. Time and time again, we learn it's a futile exercise. You have to wait until at least Thanksgiving before you really concretely talk about this stuff.
Which it all starts to take shape. And like we said, most of the best teams in the league are going to get at least one game against each other. Before I get you out of here, I know, Thanksgiving's always special from a football perspective, but I do really feel like the football gods have blessed us with an especially good slate, in my opinion, this year. I mean, first of all, when was the last time the vibes were this good around the
Detroit.
Lions? Like,
come on,
were they playing Thanksgiving football the last time the vibes were this good in Detroit? Like, I can't wait to see the scene, because Ford Field's fun regardless on Thanksgiving, but Ford Field for an 8-2 Lions team, and then the night game obviously is, it's an NFC West grudge match. 2 best teams in the division, 2 teams likely to make the playoffs. Like, I think I'm more excited for Thanksgiving football this year than I have been in a long time.
Well, you always have typically some like weird out of conference. Like, I think it was 2 years ago. Like, it might've been last year when it was like Cowboys Raiders, and you're like, hey, that's weird. Or like there's an AFC team like
right.
Bills Lions last year. This is 3 matchups, divisional grudge matches. All these teams are relevant right now. Washington, you're talking about a coaching situation that everyone's keeping their eyes on, but damn well Washington's going to play Dallas stuff and Sam Howell's going to come out gunning. Like, 3 good games. And then you get the Black Friday thing, which I don't work for Amazon. I'm not employed by Amazon. I think it's really cool. Like, I'm into it. And I think everyone on that Friday afternoon is like, all right, we did the family thing yesterday. I'm kind of slightly hungover, whether it be from football or alcohol or just eating way too much. And, oh, there's football again. All right. Usually we're watching some second tier college game late in the afternoon. Nope.
Right.
We're watching the NFL, and I'll be watching.
If it's on, I will be watching it. All right. One last thing. I mean, look, I know we're both in the industry. I think Thanksgiving's a little bit different, knowing you have to keep a work schedule, but other than the football, is there a family tradition? Is there a side dish that you get excited about? What's your other favorite part of this weekend?
Okay. I'm going to give you the best part about Thanksgiving for me. And this is with 2 kids and with a lovely wife and with our house. And I work on Thursday morning. I always host Good Morning Football. Thanksgiving. It's great. There is a second to third quarter of the early game. And this is not an insult to our Fox bosses or our production crew or anything. There's an amazing nap that is built into that moment. It's post like early starting of eating, and it's after waking up at 4 a.m. to go to. I get a nice little nap in. I'm going to probably miss Jack Harlow as much as I love him. I'm going to sleep right through it because I'm going to be in that little nap. And then I wake up in the third quarter and there's still a full slate of football up ahead. I'm on my couch and it is just pure bliss. So to me, it's the Thanksgiving mid first game nap that I will always get in, and I'm put it in the books for the rest of my life. I will always make sure I get that.
There are a lot of dads nodding along to that, I'm sure, right now. Peter, I love chatting with you, man. I am, it's that time of year. I'll say I'm very thankful that you come on every week and we get to do this. I appreciate it. We will, enjoy the holiday, and I'll catch you next week, man.
We'll see you. Enjoy the holidays, my friend.
Let's get into the actual games, and which better Thanksgiving game to start with than the one happening in Detroit. It's as classic as pecan pie, pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, whichever you prefer, on Thanksgiving Day. They've been playing Thanksgiving football in Motown forever, and never have the vibes been as high as they are in Detroit than right now. The Lions, soaring at 8-2, welcome the Green Bay Packers to Ford Field for a division showdown on Thanksgiving. Wanted to make sure we did this one justice, so I brought in friend of the show, Fox Sports NFC North writer Carmen Vitali, to break down all things Lions Packers.
All right, Carmen, it's Thanksgiving. You know what that means. It's another Lions Thanksgiving game, but it's such a different script. The mighty 8-2 Detroit Lions playing host to the struggling, kind of depressing, maybe good, maybe not good Green Bay Packers. Look, if you're a Detroit Lions fan listening to this, I want to give you a chance to relish in the fact that you are the division leader, the team that's clearly having the best season. I don't know how often that's happened over the last however long they've been playing this game.
Usually hope springs eternal around the holidays, and that's how the Detroit Lions operate on Thanksgiving. They just kind of hope beyond hope that they can pull off a win no matter who their opponent is, because it's like the holidays and there's some holiday magic associated with it. But this year, they don't have to hope. They're the favorites by a large margin. I haven't checked the line recently.
7.5. It's 7.5 right now.
7.5. Right. And this is an up and coming Green Bay team. These are not the bullies of the NFC North anymore. It's going to be a really interesting game that I'm really looking forward to, with a halftime concert of Jack Harlow in between.
Can I give you my favorite stat? Like there's a million funny stats about the Lions right now. First 8-2 start since the 60s. My personal favorite: if the Lions beat the Packers on Thursday, it'll be their first 5-game win streak against Green Bay since they won 11 straight between 1949 and 1954. So a win against Green Bay on Thursday puts you into territory that you haven't seen since before Vince Lombardi coached the Packers. I just love that context. This is why we're excited about the Lions. All right, where would you like to dive into this matchup? Yeah, you are the guest. I will let you start.
Wow.
I know I'm the host, but I'm letting you start.
I was gonna say, this is your show. I'm supposed to follow your lead, but
this is our show.
From you. This is our show. That's very sweet of you. I love the Lions for so many different reasons. We can start anywhere. If you want to go bad news first, good news first. I don't know what type of guy you are. Which I'll give you that pick, and then we can jump off from there.
I'm glass half empty always. I'm a pessimist.
Okay, so you want bad news first?
Yeah, sure.
We can talk about the Lions look like a quote unquote juggernaut in the NFC, which isn't saying a whole lot given the field of competition right now. But they do have a weakness, and their weakness is in the secondary. This Lions secondary is not something that it doesn't look like it was supposed to look at the beginning of the season. You do not have CJ Gardner-Johnson out there right now. You don't have Emmanuel Mosley. those are two of your guys that you brought in the offseason to fortify the unit that was your weakness last year. And they didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. I'm not exactly sure why. They are one injury away from catastrophe back there. And while their defensive stats have been decently good, they're kind of middle of the pack overall in defensive DVOA, but their pass defense has slipped a little bit. And you're looking at kind of bottom third numbers when it comes to pass defense DVOA, EPA per play, all of those fun advanced metrics that we like to kind of quantify teams on these days. And I mean, that's kind of where their weakness lies. And that's what the Bears kind of tried to exploit last week. And for most of the game, for about 55 minutes of the game, they succeeded.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's true. So going back to the blowout loss to the Ravens, they allowed 13 yards per attempt to Lamar Jackson. That's an outlier. But even the Bears managed 7.3 yards per attempt. And the issues, even when Justin Fields has been healthy, it always hasn't looked that great in the passing game.
He didn't even have 200 yards passing. So
do you think, but even with a stop-start pass game like the Bears being able to hit big gains against them, do you think Jordan Love and the Packers pass catchers are up to taking advantage of that?
Well, that's what we saw in their game against the Chargers. Is the Packers were finally able to muster some chunk plays to get into a little bit of a rhythm. You saw the beautiful touchdown pass to Romeo Doubs. You saw an end around by Jaden Reed. The Packers are starting to get creative as their young guys are grasping the system. They're getting more experience. Now Matt LaFleur is opening up the playbook a little bit more for them to get creative. And Jordan Love has an arm. I know that's been a knock against him, his arm strength, but he's been able to push the ball down the field, whether it's on a tight end leak to Luke Musgrave, who usually stumbles a couple of plays later, or Tucker Kraft a couple steps later, I should say. And I think that's what you're going to have to do to keep pace with a Lions offense that is insanely complete, insanely productive, is one of the best and most fun to watch in the league.
It's hilarious. Like the Packers season has been such a mess, isn't the right word, but it's so up down. Like one week you'll have a guy step up, one week he'll be the scapegoat, the next week it's been Christian Watson recently, it's been Romeo Doubs at other times. And then they put together this insanely complete performance against the Chargers where like everybody got involved. It was, I'll use a Thanksgiving analogy. Like it's like a Thanksgiving plate where you've just got a little scoop of everything.
A little cornucopia, if you will. An offensive cornucopia.
But okay, here's my question. And it goes back to, yes, the Lions pass defense hasn't been as good recently, but most of the Packers' success has come against like bottom tier pass defenses. How do you trust them, I guess is what I'm saying, to maintain that consistently?
Of course I don't trust them. They're young. You're talking about the youngest team in the league right now. And what we've seen for a lot of this season is growing pains, because going into 2023 with Jordan Love's first year as a starter, the Packers were supposed to have a defense with 8 first-round picks on it that he can lean on, an offensive line that was a brick wall, and a reliable backfield in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon that he could lean on while he kind of got his sea legs, because his receivers, his tight ends, they're all first, second-year players. You don't want to put the game in their hands. And for the first part of the season, that's what we saw. We saw the big win against the Bears in week 1. You had the close one in Atlanta, and then you had the win over the Saints in week 3. But then the cracks started to show. A.J. Dillon was hurt. You lost David Bakhtiari for the season. And that defense still has the same problems it had last year and is still not playing up to their talent level. So this has been Jordan Love and his receivers trying to develop and gain experience where it's kind of the blind leading the blind. And you've seen it now materialize over the last couple of weeks where that chemistry is starting to be there. These guys have seen more. They have more experience. Like I said before, Matt LaFleur trusts them a little bit more to open up the playbook. And when that happens, lo and behold, Jordan Love has his first 300-yard game as a NFL passer. So they're turning a corner, but at the same time, they're running into a very good defensive front. If the Lions' weakness is their pass defense, a lot of it is made up for by that defensive front. Aiden Hutchinson in particular, but also those D tackles on the interior. Aleem McNeil is one of the most underrated players at his position in the league. And they are going to go after Jordan Love. So, of course, I don't trust them right now. Jordan Love hasn't seen all the stunts and the games that Aaron Glenn likes to play up front. This is a guy who has Todd Bowles as his mentor. So you've got all of these kind of creative things that he can pull out of the bag to confuse a very young quarterback who hasn't seen a lot yet.
Jordan Love has like 3 plays a game that are as fun as anything that's happening in the NFL right now. The consistency would be nice. I don't know if this is the week that it happens. Going off of what you were just talking about, though, a big part of it, we just got word right before we recorded this. It looks like Aaron Jones is unlikely to play on Thanksgiving. He sprained his MCL in the win against the Chargers. Are they just going to feed A.J. Dillon the rock and hope that he can make do against that Lions front? Or you mentioned the end around. Do you see Matt LaFleur trying to get creative with his receivers to try to replace that production from Aaron Jones?
And that's what he did last week against the Chargers. You had rookie Jaden Reed had as many receiving yards as he did rushing yards. It was 46 in each. He had that end around touchdown that was so exciting and was also kind of creativity and innovation out of necessity. I think necessity breeds this innovation that we're seeing from Matt LaFleur. And if this was a couple of weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, you're just going to run A.J. Dillon as much as you possibly can, but that hasn't been super effective on a consistent basis this season. So now you are going to see a little bit more creativity out of this Green Bay offense. But at the same time, Jordan Love had 40 pass attempts against the Chargers. I don't think they're afraid to kind of let him throw the rock around a little bit more, especially now that he's gaining chemistry with these young receivers, and it's starting to pay off. I mean, this is Green Bay building a foundation for sustained success with young players on team-controlled contracts for years. And if it works, which it has in the past, there's 3 decades worth of evidence to suggest that this strategy works, albeit not quickly. The Packers could be set up for long-term success, just not maybe in the immediate and maybe just not against one of the best teams in the NFC.
I'm going to say maybe not the very immediate future, which, okay, exactly. So we're pretty far into this preview and we haven't yet mentioned the best piece of the game, which is the Lions offense. I mean, credit to them. They pulled it out of the fire last week. The 3 interceptions from Jared Goff, the waiting until the last 5 minutes, probably not a formula you want to repeat.
No.
I can't help but feel like this is a great opportunity to get right. I mean, you mentioned the talent on the Packers defense, but we just haven't seen it materialize. I mean, am I wrong for thinking the Lions should be able to do whatever they want to do in this game?
I don't think so, because you haven't gotten the production you need out of that Green Bay defensive front. You don't know. You're hoping you're going to have Jair Alexander, but they were hoping they were going to have him last game, and they didn't end up having him at the last minute, which has been kind of a trend now that I think about it among multiple players for the Green Bay Packers this season. But that being said, this is an offense that has so many different ways to beat you. And if you let that ground game get going, especially, that opens up this giant playbook. I keep saying it, and I need to, at some point, sit down with Ben Johnson and just ask him, how big is your play sheet? How big is your call sheet per game? Because you're pulling out looks in the third, fourth quarter that we haven't seen all game, and you're running things on every single series that is unique to that series. Especially if you kind of let these guys get their rhythm going and you let David Montgomery and you let Jahmyr Gibbs do their thing. I think they're the best running back tandem in the NFL right now. So the fact that the Lions possessed the ball for less than 20 minutes against the Chicago Bears, Jared Goff threw 3 picks. They had another fumble. They had 4 turnovers. They lost the turnover battle 4-1, and they still pulled off that game. I mean, how much more resilient can you possibly get? This is what good teams do. Even when they have horrible games, they win. And it's so encouraging. And I think it shows them and it adds to the belief that they have and they've always had under Dan Campbell, that they are a good team. They can survive and withstand anything. And that's what they're going to do. And they're going to come out guns blazing on Thanksgiving in Detroit in front of their fans. Like I'm sure Eminem's going to be there. It's just,
I would guess so. Yeah.
They have all the juices flowing. They have all
He's
the
got to show support for Jack Harlow, if nothing else.
They have songs together. I'm hoping for a surprise appearance personally, but it's just this team has so much swag, even on and off the field, that they just look unstoppable offensively.
I've watched too much Thursday night football this year to like truly allow myself to believe it's going to be that easy. It's a division game, but at the same time, like, how fun would it be? Again, going back to the vibes in Detroit, being 8-2 for the first time since the Kennedy administration. How fun would it be if the Lions were just able to kind of flex their muscle in an environment like this, where this will probably be their most watched game since that season opener against the Chiefs?
Let me tell you something about Ford Field. It gets loud. It is an indoor stadium because of the elements in Detroit. And when the Detroit crowd is in it, that place is deafening. And I love being in the press box there because it's open air. So you feel like you're a part of the crowd. And it's a really cool environment. And it would just be the little cherry on top of this season that is going so well for the Lions. And they keep proving to us time and time again that they are not the same old Lions. They're not going to succumb to the same old Lions would have lost that game to the Chicago Bears last week. And this is another rivalry game. I think these teams have played each other the most of any two teams in the league, between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. And it would just be so much validation and redemption for Detroit fans. And at this point, there's no reason not to root for them because they're a fun team. They're a good team. Dan Campbell's fun. His staff is fun. This fan base has been just famished for a good team and a reliable team to get behind. And that seems to be the 2023 Detroit Lions right now.
I couldn't agree more. And like I said, I mean, so many years through my childhood, I looked this up. This is only the 7th time since realignment, so 2002, that the Lions are going into this game with a winning record. And I just think back to all the years that, like, you turn the game on because it's on, but like, you're not really excited to watch it. You're like, oh, okay, it's the Lions. They're playing this game. Fine. But it's a different story. It's very exciting. It's very fun. I can't wait to watch it. You will be there at Ford Field. I know you are at the whims of the wonderful and very professional staff there as far as what will be served. So I know it's not up to you, but like, is there one like Thanksgiving dish you're hoping for in the pregame spread? Like, what do you absolutely have to have?
Well, I have a frame of reference because last year I was in Minnesota for the Vikings-Patriots game on Thanksgiving, and Minnesota had a wonderful spread, as they do every game. Minnesota does so many things well. I am now like the bar has been set, and I feel like because Detroit is known for Thanksgiving, they should have a good spread. My favorite dish in particular is stuffing. And I also think that the closer to homemade and a little bit more rustic it is, the better. I make a really good Italian kind of rustic bread stuffing, but people can't, I get that that's not going to be able to be mass produced for a press box, but if it's good and not mushy and there's some texture to it, it's the best kind. So I'm hoping for some good stuffing. I'm sure there will be some turkey, some mashed potatoes, all those kind of things. So I'm very interested to see what Detroit pulls out for Thanksgiving, knowing that this is kind of their calling card.
Lions, you heard it here. The Vikings are trying to top you in the Thanksgiving game, so get on top of it.
It was a great spread. It was a great spread. It multiple pies too afterwards. It was phenomenal.
This will be my first Thanksgiving in a decade without the mac and cheese at AT&T Stadium, the Cowboys Stadium, in my life. I'm more than a little bit sad about it. If you ever make your way to Arlington, Texas, try the mac and cheese. Carmen Vitali, thank you so much. Enjoy the game. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you next time.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Let's take things down to Texas for our second Thanksgiving game. That would be the Dallas Cowboys welcoming the Washington Commanders to AT&T Stadium. I'm dead serious. Try the mac and cheese if you're ever there. More important things on the docket, though. I think the headline here, look, I get it. It's all about America's team. It's all Cowboys all the time. I lived it for a decade. I understand it better than most. But the juiciest thing in this game for me is where this season could be going for the Washington Commanders. It seems the vibes change with this team week in and week out. I've felt really good about where Washington is at various times this year, but it seems really, really low in the DC area right now. Look, they took the Eagles to overtime earlier this year. They barely lost the Eagles by a touchdown right after that. They've played some really good games, but swept by the New York Giants, beaten by Tommy DeVito. They're 3 games under 500. The models will tell you that their chances of making the NFC playoffs are basically nil. Now you go to Dallas, and the schedule doesn't let up a ton from there either. They got the Cowboys in Arlington. Miami's on the horizon. 49ers and another game against the Cowboys are lurking more closer to the end of the season. I don't like to call for people's jobs. That's not what I'm trying to do here, but it does make you wonder where this all is heading. We said it before the season started. We talk about it all the time. New ownership group in Washington, no ties to anything that happened before they got there. They're trying out a new quarterback in Sam Howell. I would say the results have largely been positive. New offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy. Offense hasn't been perfect, but the results have been largely encouraging for a team starting a first-year quarterback. Ron Rivera, 4th year. How are you going to impress Josh Harris and the new ownership group? Getting swept by the Giants, losing 4 out of your last 5, losing on Thursday night to the Bears. Again, I'll just say it one more time, beaten by Tommy DeVito. Not great. Not great. And we know this about the Cowboys over the last year or so. They have a habit of beating people down at AT&T Stadium. They're winning their 12 straight wins. They're winning them by an average of 18 points a game. How's it going to look to the new ownership group if you go in there on Thursday afternoon and get run out of the building, which we've seen the Cowboys do to a lot of teams this year? So that's what I'm watching. I'm not saying we're going to wake up on Black Friday to news of a firing, but this is a crucial stretch, in my opinion, for cementing what happens with Ron Rivera, with that coaching staff. If the decision hasn't been made already, letting go of the rope here, you at least want a team fighting to the end of the season, even if they're not going to make the playoffs. Letting go of the rope. If the Commanders all of a sudden don't look competitive, if the team looks like it's lost its drive, that ain't what you want. So that's what I'm watching going into this game, mainly because we know what the Cowboys have done to people in that building recently. That's the other storyline to watch, is that I said it 2 weeks ago. This stretch felt really crucial for the Cowboys in terms of being on top of the NFC East, fighting for the bye week, fighting for a lofty seed in the playoffs. You got to be kind of frustrated if you're a Cowboys fan. They've done a beautiful job of handling their business. Nobody's going to be wowed by crushing the Giants and the Panthers, but you were big favorites to win those games, and you did. You handled it very impressively. You'd like to think the Eagles were going to slip up. They came so close to losing against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they didn't do it. Brutal. But 2 more chances. Eagles still have to play the Bills and the Niners. If the Cowboys handle their business and the Eagles slip up at least once, man, oh man, does that set up a juicy rematch in Texas in just a few weeks. Cowboys-Eagles 2.0. The first one was a classic. The Eagles escaped by the skin of their teeth. Hopefully, the Cowboys can hold serve. It doesn't have to be by 30 points, but they can't afford to lose this game. You can't afford to lose to a Washington team that looks as flawed as the Commanders do and expect to be anything better than a wild card. And that's what it looks like right now. The Eagles have been so in control of this thing. It's looking like the Cowboys' best case scenario is a 5 seed, and you hope you get to travel to play the NFC South champions. I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's what you can do when you're playing overmatched opposition like this. The Cowboys just have to finish it off. Admirable performances against the Giants and the Panthers. They are favored by 10.5 points against the Commanders. They need to finish this run of 3 games. Then you've got Seattle. Then you've got Philly. The schedule difficulty picks up in a big way. But you feel pretty good about what's happened since the Eagles loss if you're sitting at 8-3, preparing to go into that meat grinder at the end of the season. Just got to finish the job. The main matchup to keep an eye on for me is how Sam Howell does against this Dallas defense, which actually, it's not Sam Howell's introduction to Cowboys Commanders. Remember, he got his first NFL start last year at the very end of the 2022 season, and he got a win. Not an amazing day, but he played well enough to help Washington dominate the Cowboys 26-6. So that's a heck of an introduction. Would be even sweeter, I'm sure, to start 2-0 against one of your oldest rivals. And don't let anybody tell you, for the record, don't let anybody tell you the Cowboys weren't trying to win that game at the end of last season. Obviously could have helped them from a seeding standpoint. Sam Howell just went out, helped Washington get a big win at home. Now it's on the road. This is his first game at AT&T Stadium, and how he handles this Dallas defense, I think it's as simple as saying that'll determine the game. This season's largely been incredibly successful for Sam Howell, for a guy who had one start coming into the year. He's thrown for plenty of yards, 3,038 passing yards, leads the league. 18 passing touchdowns, is right at the top of the league. Seems like every other week he has a performance that makes you think, yeah, Washington has something in this guy. This is somebody worth sticking with. Of course, with the good come the bad. He's famously been sacked 51 times. He's tied for the league in interceptions, which as much as Washington's throwing the ball, both of these things are bound to happen. Plenty of yards, plenty of turnovers. According to Pro Football Focus, Sam Howell has thrown 19 turnover-worthy passes, which ties Mac Jones for the most by a quarterback this season. Even the percentage isn't great. So according to Pro Football Focus, turnover-worthy plays, fumbles, and passes that were maybe ill-advised. So it's PFF's way of keeping track of bad decisions that you got away with in addition to turnovers. 3.5% of the time when Sam Howell drops back, takes the snap, he's committing a turnover-worthy play, which maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's seventh worst among regular starters in the NFL this season. So not counting your PJ Walkers and your Tyson Bagents, among guys that have started the majority of the season, it's 7th worst. So Sam Howell is willing to give you a couple shots at the football, and the Dallas Cowboys are plenty happy to oblige. We know all about their secondary. Deron Bland, 4 pick sixes this season. That tied the league record last week. He's tied for the highest coverage grade of any quarterback in the league this year per PFF. Cowboys have been really good at limiting explosive plays. Stephon Gilmore in his own right has an interception, as well as 8 pass breakups, according to PFF. It's good secondary. It's a veteran secondary. It's a veteran defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn. It's also a Cowboys pass rush that is going to get after Sam Howell. I'm telling you that right now. Cowboys lead the league in pass rush win rate. 61% of the time, they're winning their matchups, getting after the quarterback. So even though they're only 7th in actual sacks, they're affecting the quarterback as well as anybody in the league right now. That probably matters for a guy that's been sacked 51 times, as Sam Howell has. Now, some of that, it's not all on the Washington offensive line. Some of that is on a young quarterback. Howell's an athletic guy. He wants to extend plays, look for guys to come open later in the play clock. And it's worked. He's got 34 completions of 20-plus yards this year. That's tied for top 10. The guy's playing really, really well considering the relative lack of experience. But it feels telling. He averages 2.8 seconds per throw, which is middle of the pack, right? It's not a crazy amount of time. He's also not just getting the ball out super quickly, but a guy that's been sacked 51 times, taking that much time to throw, I think it speaks to how often Sam Howell looks to extend plays. Between the pass rush and between what the Cowboys can do in coverage, it has potential to bite him. We'll see. I think this is such a boom or bust game. I think Sam Howell is either going to put the country on notice in a Thanksgiving spot and just play an incredible game. We know the Cowboys are susceptible to big plays. We saw Arizona do it earlier this season. Either that's going to happen or the Cowboys are going to maul this Washington team. They're going to force 3 takeaways. They're going to sack Howell 6 times. It's going to be over in the blink of an eye, which has happened for the Cowboys so many times this year. One or the other. Incredible Washington performance and probably win, or an absolute dog walking by the Cowboys. I would be surprised if the end result is anywhere in between. That's my bold proclamation for the week. Given what the Cowboys have been doing at home this year, given how hot they look, how well they've played the last 2 weeks in front of an electric Thanksgiving crowd, it's a big tradition in Dallas, I lean toward the second option. I think the Cowboys probably cover for the third straight week, and they set themselves up really nicely heading into that home stretch of the schedule. We wrap up Thanksgiving with the most intriguing matchup of the day in the nightcap, I think. It's the San Francisco 49ers going up to take on the Seattle Seahawks. All 3 Thanksgiving Day games coming inside their divisions. Keep it up, NFL. Enough with this cross-conference stuff. Give us the blood feuds on Thanksgiving, right? Like, while we're all arguing with our families, the same thing's happening out on these NFL fields. Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Commanders, and now Seahawks, 49ers. Just a great rivalry day. Feels very college-esque. And I think the team that wins this last game of the day has a chance, at least, to be the most talked of team of the weekend. I guess the fact that they play Thursday is going to work against them. You know, you consider teams like the Eagles and the Bills are going to have a chance to impress us later on in the weekend. I digress. This is a big narrative game because the 49ers, they've been hanging out, hiding in the cut. They lost 3 games in a row. They come back, they win 2 straight. They crush the Jags. They beat the Buccaneers. But are we truly back to talking about them? Well, we will be. If they go on the road and beat Seattle, first of all, they establish themselves at the top of the division. They announce themselves as really returning to peak form, and it'll be just in time for another Super Bowl caliber, all hype type of game. Right after this is over, they get the long weekend, and then they go to face Philadelphia. So if the Niners win this game, they got a chance to go to Philly, knock off the Eagles. A week and a half from now, we could be talking about them as the best team in the entire NFL, just like we were in the first month of the season. And for the Seahawks, you managed to get a win. I know they just lost to the LA Rams. I know it wasn't all that pretty, but you consider how banged up they are, and you consider if they win this game via tiebreaker, they will take the top spot in the NFC West. Plenty of reason to be excited about that. I think that is a head-turning situation. I know there were some people before the season that tapped the Seahawks to win the division. I don't think most people saw that coming. If they're on top of the NFC West heading into December, I call that an eyebrow-raising, head-turning series of events. It's just in time to go take on the Cowboys. I think I said it to Peter Schrager. So many marquee matchups between big-time contenders. By the time we get to the playoffs, we'll have gotten a preview of what all that's going to look like. So that's the narrative that's at stake. If you care about all of that stuff, I think whoever wins this game will be riding as high as anybody in the NFL heading into week 13. The matchup that I want to watch most specifically, I think the trenches decide this game. Shocker of shockers. San Francisco 49ers pass rush it's been a theme. It's been inevitable for what feels like 4 years at this point. They have the highest graded pass rush in the NFL at 91, according to Pro Football Focus. They're one of 3 teams in the NFL with 100 pressures and 27 sacks, just like the Cowboys. Even if the statistics don't say they're the best, they are absolutely at the top of their game when it comes to getting after the quarterback. And the reason it's important, we talked about this the last time we focused on the Seahawks. Their offensive line has just been a revolving door all season long. I know it's stabilized a little bit in recent weeks, and that's the big development to watch. I wonder if right tackle Abe Lucas is going to be back for this game. He's been missing since September. It's a long injury. He almost came back to play against LA. Pete Carroll said, well, let's give you a little extra time. Is a Thursday night game enough? Because if you get him back, Charles Cross is back at left tackle. He looks like an exciting young prospect, second year in the league. Lucas in his second year as well. Haven't seen as much of him, but you got to feel so much better about your chances against Nick Bosa and Chase Young if those two guys are healthy and available. Especially Geno Smith injured his elbow on Sunday. He's been limited this week. I assume he's not going to be at 100% health. Seahawks might not have Kenneth Walker for this game. There's a chance they don't have Tyler Lockett. They're beat to hell. Having their offensive line as healthy as it's been with as many starters available as possible for the first time basically all season would be a heck of a big development. I think it's going to be tough to slow down the 49ers regardless. But if you don't have Abe Lucas back in the lineup, it might be mission impossible. I mean, that could be very, very tough for the Seahawks to get through with what the Niners bring at you. But if they hold up well enough, this is a Seahawks team that likes to take shots down the field. Talanoa Hufanga is now on injured reserve for the 49ers. I think I've said this half a dozen times about San Francisco. If you can withstand the pass rush, you probably feel pretty good about your odds of getting guys open. DK Metcalf, if Lockett's available, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I like your odds in that matchup if Geno Smith is on his feet long enough to see him. We'll see if that happens. I think that's the story for the game, how well the Seahawks offensive line manages against the San Francisco 49ers pass rush. Regardless, it's a division game. It's going to be entertaining one way or the other. I lean towards San Francisco, but with so many things in flux for the Seahawks injury-wise, I'm not going to be surprised if I feel differently about that by 3:00 Thursday afternoon, just in time for my second helping of turkey and mac and cheese. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait for a loaded Thanksgiving Day slate. I hope you enjoy it with loved ones. I hope you get a fantastic nap in. I hope you've got some great leftovers lined up. Leftovers, always better than the actual meal, by the way. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Guess what? It's not all we've got for the week. We never stop grinding. We'll be back on Friday. We're going to recap all of these games. We're going to preview week 12. We've got plenty left to get to this week. So stay right here. We'll be with you all through Friday and the weekend. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Hope you get to see family, friends, loved ones. Hope you get a little bit of well-deserved downtime. In the meantime, please go find us on Spotify. Go subscribe to Apple Podcasts. Find us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you get your NFL content. We will be there. I will catch y'all on Friday. Enjoy some turkey. Catch y'all next time.